Welcome to the first episode of UCF Arboretum's short documentary film series, Nature Nut. In the Nature Nut series, we are going to reveal some of the natural wonders of the Central Florida region by exploring the beautiful natural lands that we have right here on campus. And every one of our episodes is going to have a theme. And today's theme is big trees. So come join me on UCF's Big Tree Adventure with Dr. B and John G.
So Dr. B and I are going to be going into the UCF's natural areas, some of the most natural parts of the forest that a lot of students don't actually make their way out to. Now right now we're standing in front of the flagship pine species of the pine flatwoods in Florida, the longleaf pine, Pinus palustris. Now, Dr. B, why don't we take a measure of this to kind of gauge how big this tree is?
Yes, so today's theme is big trees. John and I are going to show you the standard tool that folks use to measure the size and girth of a tree, not so much the height. So let's do that here to kick off our show.
Wrap that around there. This is called a DBH tape, and it's used to measure at breast height of a tree, which is 4.5 feet.
What does DBH stand for? Diameter at breast height. So John's going to measure that.
Now this is a 25-inch longleaf pine, which is pretty small compared to longleaf pines around the southeast United States. But this is the biggest that we know of, and coincidentally enough, it's right at the beginning of some of our natural trails here. So now we're going to see what kind of trees we could find.
All right, let's get going. I want to follow up on something John G was saying earlier about where we're going. Now this is the east parcel, what we call the east parcel, which is the east area of natural lands on our campus. Main campus is way over here, and we've come out down this trail to about here where the green dot is, and we're going to go out the power line road. This is Percival Road over here, and into this dark area. And if you can see, there are some wetlands in the middle of that. It's a really remote area. Most folks are never going to get out there, even if you're an adventurer. So our goal today is to take you to places that you never go on your own so that you can see them and enjoy them. That's why it's an adventure. So we're going to go all the way up into this area and look for some of the big trees that are growing there. Like we have a tree across the trail here, so we're going to have to hoof it in the rest of the way. Coyote poop? I don't know. Scat. Oh, cool. One of the green ones, habanero. Those are cool. All right, we have about reached the end of the trail. That is not an official trail we came down, but it is an area, an access point. And we are now going to go off trail in search of two of our big trees, two different species of tree. And the first one we're going to look for is a big slash pine that is just on the other side of this wetland. So we're going to hike through there and find it. And I'm going to let John G tell you a little bit about the slash pine.
Yeah, so this is the bushwhacking part of the trip. We're going to be hiking through some pretty dense vegetation. It's kind of where Mesic flatwoods meet some of the wetlands. So we'll see what kind of plants we encounter on the way.
See that one right there? Is that it? This one? No. Nope. Oh man, there's some beautiful big palm pines. All right. Watch your step. Yeah, I think you and I were heading towards different trees. We probably didn't need to go the way you wanted to start. So we wanted to stop here just to, John G was saying we're going through a little bit of an ecotone here, so I'm gonna let him explain the little change and transition that we're taking in habitat right here.
Yeah, so an ecotone is really a transition from a more upland system into a lowland system. What you're standing in right now is probably a Mesic flatwoods dominated by saw palm, a lot of slash pine, and once in a while some longleaf pine. Transitions down into what we call a cypress dome, dominated by cypress trees. They both have different hydrologies, which makes them very different in biodiversity, but along the ecotone, where a lot of the vegetation is shared by the lowland and upland, you actually get the highest amount of biodiversity, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. All right, well, let's go down into the wetland. Okay. Now this is sphagnum moss, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool sphagnums through here.
Yeah, use that or I'll challenge it.
Yeah.
Now this is a really interesting wetland. It's really kind of unlike some of the wetlands we have on campus. You see it has this nice little open area in the middle with some really cool wetland species, and then it's surrounded by the cypress trees. So having an open marsh like this, surrounded by the cypress trees, it's kind of unusual wetland for campus. It's really got a lot of different cool things we can talk about. But John G wants to tell you about these cypress knees.
Yeah, so these are basically knees. Bald cypresses are one of the only trees that have knees. They are actually called pneumatophores as well, and they're basically above ground root systems, and the actual appearance of these is relatively unknown. Some researchers actually believe that these actually transport oxygen to the relatively inundated roots of the bald cypress during times of really wet seasons. Right now, even though we're standing in muck and it's watery, it's actually the dry season. As you can see, there's a line right here where moss is basically growing where the water cutoff line usually is. So during the wet season in the summer, late summertime, the water can usually reach right up to here, and we'd be up to our knees in some water.
That's right. On the other side of this wetland, if you look in the distance there, we can start to see some big slash pines. And that's where we're headed. We're going to try to find the biggest slash pine on campus. The tree. So if you guys follow a different route, you may have a different vision of like, oh, this is the way to go. No, this one. Oh yeah, we're coming up. This is good.
So we just arrived at the largest slash pine. Slash pine is Pinus eliadii, and it usually grows in a little bit wetter areas. It actually has a better resilience than a lot of other pines to growing in more saturated soils. So we're gonna walk up and take a quick measure.
Here it is, our biggest slash pine. It is one of our more common trees in Florida. Like John said, it's not a wet upland species like the longleaf. It can grow in those conditions, but it will tolerate these wetter conditions. They probably do get bigger than this, but this is our biggest one. We have some competitors, and it's down in this wet mesic area where there's a lot of really good productivity and big trees. All right, John, take it away.
Let's take a measure.
Oh,
grab that. Need help with these bigger trees to measure.
Let's see, make this right side up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we good?
Right there?
Right there. Turn that around to me. I'll bring it back to you. So that was 25 was the longleaf
pine. Yeah.
And now we're at 28.
And at 28, we're actually at 29 and a half.
29 and a half.
29 and a
29
half.
and a half inches for the full diameter breast height. So almost 30 inches. Yep, beautiful. That is a great tree. Wow. So John, if this tree's 29 and a half inches diameter breast height, how old do you think it is?
Oh, growing in this ecosystem, I would say it's no less than 90 years old, but what do you say we get an accurate count using the increment bore?
All right, let's do it.
All right.
Let's see how old this tree is. All right.
So an increment bore is a tool that arborists use in order to assess the accurate age of a tree. It's also used to assess the dendroclimatology, which is actually the study of time with trees overlaid with the climate type. So you actually get to see when it snowed, when there was drought or periods of drought or excessive rain. So it's a really cool way that arborists get to analyze history through the rings of a tree. Dr. B, can you hold that for me? All right. When you're coring a tree, you need to make sure that the lean is absolutely perfect, because there's compression wood and tension wood, and both of those pressures will definitely get one of these bores stuck. So you need to actually find the center of the tree where those two forces are actually meeting, called the shear wood of the tree. And in there, it actually has the least resistance, so I'll be able to plunge this all the way through.
You'll be able to reach the middle of that thing?
I hope so. Let's see, we're looking for the pith, which is the center of the tree.
Now it's squeaking.
Yeah, I found some pressure. Yeah, that's that sound.
So this little hole doesn't harm the tree at all, does it?
No, so when you think about it, a lot of people think the nutrients of the tree are transported through the center. If you were to look at the cross section, basically cut the tree in half, the transport nutrients are actually going around the edge or the circumference. So this is actually taking out maybe less than 1% of the actual measurement of the circumference.
Oh yeah, even less than that.
So yeah, the tree, his health is not jeopardized in any way. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually plug up this hole once we're done, make sure no insects can get inside. Dr. B,
all right,
have that piece.
There you go.
Let's see what we got here.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Nice.
Nice.
Look at that.
Okay.
And we actually got to the pith.
Oh, you got to the pith.
Yeah, see where those rings kind of circle around? That's the pith. So now we can actually count each one of these rings and get a general idea of how old the tree is, because sometimes, depending on different climate patterns, they will actually skip producing rings or produce double rings, especially in ecosystems in Florida where you kind of have a pretty set standard temperature throughout the year.
Oh, it's fine. How's it look?
Looks good. You kind of sand it down a little bit to get a better idea. Yeah. So all this light wood that you see is actually the spring growth, the early in the year growth, which is usually a lot quicker. So the cells are usually a little larger. That's why it looks a little white. The late summer growth are usually the dark rings. So when you're counting the rings, you actually count just the dark ones or just the light ones. You don't count both of them. Here's the pith. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
Drum roll.
About 74.
74.
About 74,
Awesome.
yeah.
Good. Awesome. That's
Tree's
good.
about 74 years old, and in just 74 years it can get to this size. Just imagine what 200, maybe even 300 years can get you.
So that means it's been here since 1950, which is long after they would have first come through here and cleared this land. Yeah. So it's a second growth, as we would expect.
And looking back, you can actually tell when this tree was growing much better. See, this is actually the center of the tree right here, and all these first rings, see how evenly spaced they are? The first 10, 15 years of this tree's life were
Growing fast.
Easy living, incredibly fast growth, and then right around here you start to see the rings start to get closer and closer. And that might be years of drought, might be increased competition. Different environmental factors will slow down the growth of a pine tree of this size. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Send it right back in.
You get stuck there.
That's fine, as long as we plug up the outside, yeah.
Cool. That worked out great.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the big cypress tree. That's our next adventure. We are definitely far behind. Oh my gosh. So now we're coming in on the big cypress tree, and this will be the biggest tree of all. Oh wow, that's the big cypress. Woo! Now, cypress trees do get a lot bigger than this, but this is our biggest cypress tree, so we're very proud of it. Massive, massive cypress. So John, why don't you walk us through and tell us about the bald cypress.
Yeah, so this is the bald cypress, Taxodium disticum, and there's actually two distinct species of cypress in Florida. You have the bald cypress, which usually grows along river ends and kind of open watery areas. Then you have pond cypress, which usually grows in cypress domes. Now, they are the only deciduous conifer in Florida, actually the United States. And that means that they lose their leaves, and their leaves are needles. So they're actually conifers, very similar to that of a pine. Now these trees can actually grow super, super old. They actually just found stands up in North Carolina's Black River Forest, about 2,000 to 2,500 years old. So these trees can go for an incredibly long period of time, giving us a really good record of the history of the area that they've been growing.
Well, that's a really beautiful tree, John. I love the way we have this open area where you can just see the towering tree. So let's give this thing a measurement.
This will definitely be the biggest tree.
This will be the biggest tree.
I don't even think I have an increment board to get across this. Why don't you take that, up a little bit higher, right there.
Right there?
Yep.
There you go. Oh, here we go.
This is almost 50 inches DBH,
50 inches.
49 and a half.
So that's another 9 inches bigger than the 2 trunks that we saw on that other tree. That's just a really gorgeous tree. That's a great find.
Absolutely massive. And it's got a nice big open area here to be growing. It's not too much competition at this point. Looks like the tallest one in the area.
Well, great. That's great, John. I'm so excited that I got the chance to see this tree.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Definitely worth the trip.
Definitely worth the trip.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us back to where we started before we walked from the end of the trail into the wilderness here on UCF campus. I hope you enjoyed our big tree adventure. John G., thank you so much for joining us on today's journey.
It's been great hunting big trees with you, Dr. B.
It has been great hunting big trees. So stay tuned for our next episode, which will be about UCF wetlands, which we're going to film later. And thank you so much for joining us today on our adventure. This way?